Welcome to That Could Have Been an Email. I'm Leslie Bailey.
And I'm Ron Shaw.
And we started this podcast to discuss the good, bad, and ugly of project managing, bring humor to our everyday project management and client situations, and a place to commiserate on all those things that our partners, friends who aren't in the industry never understand.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to That Could Have Been an Email. I'm Leslie Bailey. Along with me always is Ron Shaw. And I probably sound a little bit different. Technology has failed me today, but I did not want to miss this conversation with Connie Cay-Santos. We finally have our first guest. Ron, that's exciting.
Yes, it is very exciting. And Connie is an amazing first guest to have on the show.
Well, Ron and
yes.
Les, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to kind of dive in and join the fun.
Yeah, welcome, Connie. Connie has got a lot of experience in what we're going to talk about today. So today we're talking about really taking that step and diving in from working for an organization to going out on your own and really designing your ideal career path. Because I think COVID kind of led us all down that path of what we really want to be doing, how much time we want to be investing into our careers that are away from our personal lives, our families, traveling, things that we want to do, and really aligning those with our values as well. So it's an exciting opportunity for everybody to get to really look into that, because I don't think we've ever really done that before. I think we all were at organizations and working a lot of hours, and we kind of just were being that yes person. We weren't being the, I don't have time for this person, and really looking at those opportunities on how to really make those connections for ourselves and our career. So Connie, we're so happy that you joined us to talk about that. And I do want to first start off with, who is Connie? So Connie right now is the Chief Experience Strategist with K7, but Connie, you do so many other things. So can you first start out and kind of tell our listeners, our audience members, kind of just everything that you do right now in the industry?
Oh, where do I start? Okay, so I have my own business, K7, as the Chief Experience Strategist, where I take on special projects. But along with that as well, I am also one of my clients, and it is like a full-time job, is with Quest Audio Visual, and I'm their Director of Engagement Strategies there. Along with that as well, I am also a strategic partner with Ingamio, where I recently stepped down as the head of strategic partnerships. I can focus on my K7, but still be able to maintain that relationship and support the existing relationships I have with clients and partners that I've built at Ingamio. In addition to that, I am also the VP of many things here. So VP of Communications and strategic partnerships at NPI Toronto chapter. And I have other communities that I'm part of. So wherever I can, I try to support, but sometimes it's also understanding, where does Connie pause a little bit, right? So for now, if I take a deep breath and say, Connie's focused on K7 as the Chief Experience Strategist, and my other major priority is my role as Director of Engagement Strategies at Quest. And on the side, my side hustle with K7 is taking on other special projects along the way. It's a mouthful.
So basically, you have a lot of time on your hands, is what you're saying.
No, there's
wow.
not enough time. Same as everyone, 24/7, but I think it's trying to find the balance of where can you add the most value and not spread yourself so thin. I don't have the magic calculations on that yet, but somehow things are still working and I'm still standing.
Yeah, and also you're running a household, right? You're a mother. So you've got that job on the side as well. So that's so many things. So let's go into that a little bit, because I want to understand, or I want to get a feel for your experience of how you went from working for one organization to all these different things, and how you decided to kind of go out on your own and try to get those opportunities.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to start back a little bit with a bit of a history. So I came from Hudson's Bay Company. I was there for about almost a little bit over 14 years. And for me at that time, it was taking a pause to say, oh my goodness, what do I want to do? Like working with a company of that size, it was fantastic in terms of the culture. But I think towards the end, I'm just like, what does Connie want to do? How do I take control of my time, my projects, and not be dictated by what's the corporate agenda might be? Because often like my roles had changed multiple times throughout the 14 years. grateful for all of those experiences, but in the back of my mind, I always knew that it was kind of not in my control in terms of those corporate opportunities. I just went for the ride. A lot of them was great opportunities and promotions, but it wasn't 100% in my control. So in 2018, I basically said, you know what, it's time to make a change. So strategically, I was able to have the right conversations with my director at that time, as well as HR, to say, I'm going to wrap up my commitments. I don't want to just leave you dry within 2 weeks. Usually it's like a 2-week notice that's to say, let's go, let's leave it. But I was actually able to say within about 2 months' time, after I delivered all of these, cross-country roadshows and conferences for the company, I'm done. I need to go. I need to take a break. I need to really reevaluate what brings me joy. So at that time, it was finally at the end of almost kind of the fall of 2019, I finally wrapped up, left on really great terms, was even able to go back to support them with my own business with some of their events, but just more on the side. So 2019 was really when I refocused and figured out that I love the events industry. I love people. How do I get into it? And how do I, so going back to HBC, I didn't have the title as a event planner or any of the event titles within those many roles that I've had, even though there's many events that came under my umbrella with projects. So I was kind of like the accidental planner, right? So no one knew me in the industry, and coming out in 2019 to say, I love the people, I love the events industry, but they don't know who I am. They don't know that I have experience. So first thing for me was really, what do I need to do to build credibility? So the people that I love and the industry that I want to be in knows me and sees me, and that I can get those opportunities. So the first step was credibility, right? So I learned that, there's a really special 3-letter acronym, CMP, Certified Meeting Professional. And everyone I heard was like, I just got my CMP. I'm so excited I passed the exam. I'm like, what is this? This is so cool. And I looked at the credentials and what you needed to apply. I'm like, wait a minute, all my experience I've had at HBC had all of those. So I already felt confident enough to kind of check those boxes, did the application. And then it was a matter of studying further and deeper into what do I need in terms of the education courses? How do I get that? So PCMA came up. That's where I heard your name, Leslie. And MPI also came up, and I actually became members in 2019 in both MPI and PCMA, got a lot of great educations, enough to feel even more confident to actually schedule my exam. And through that, the other big pocket that I did not have to be successful in the market, especially in the events industry, is that people didn't know me. Even if I had the CMP when I get it, I need to build my network. So I think for me, not just being a member with an association to say I'm a member of MPI, I needed to be an active member. So joining MPI, I think strategically allowed me to make friendships, meet people and say that, hey, I want to be part of this circle. I want to be part of this events industry where people know me and I admire these, event professionals that's there. How do I get them to be my friend? How do I get them to consider me, to invite me to parties? Because they were so cool to be at parties, but not being invited was sad. So I just wanted to join the parties at that point. And I think for me, it was also the way to really immerse myself to understand, how do people think? How do the people plan that have those official titles? And I was very grateful that the MPI Toronto community really, when I joined, it was like, wow, I get to work with these people and I get to work on projects that I have no real experience in with regards to like marketing at that time. Joined the marketing committee, and I was like, oh, wow, I'm learning so much. And it was like applied learning with the permission to be brave. Brave in the sense that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do social media at that time, but I was able to kind of dive right in, work with others and have some fun. So that was kind of like my journey into building my network, and really continue to say, I'm Connie from K7. And then everyone knows what happened in 2020. And then that was the time when I first picked up the first couple clients through the MPI community to say, hey, Connie, you can do this project, help us do this and that. And then by the time I was in the negotiation of a really cool kind of a contract with a travel agency, it basically got re-syndicated because that week was the week that it was announced that COVID was a global pandemic. People had to start doing
I think we all remember that.
Exactly. We all went through that. And I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck just happened here? Right. I just started building my network.
Yeah, I was in Montreal when they announced that on a site visit, and I was like, "This event is not happening. Well, there's just no way." So it sounds like too, and it's refreshing to hear that you went on your own kind of before COVID, because and Ron, I won't speak for you. I'll let you say what your reason was, but my reason for going out on my own was COVID. I was in a super stressful situation at the current role I was in. And then I also found out I was pregnant, and I knew I cannot continue to work like that because that just wouldn't be healthy for anybody. So mine was definitely COVID related. Ron, I want to ask you, kind of going out on your own, was yours COVID related, or was it more like Connie's where you're kind of seeing that you weren't exactly satisfied with everything that you were doing?
So I think it's a combination of both. COVID forced the position I was in before I was in the virtual space already. So it was the opposite side of where you were both working from that on-site perspective. All of a sudden, all of that business came over to the virtual space. And then it was going from working, hey, you're working 40 hours a week to 100 hours a week. And it was burnout for me on that aspect of where I needed to separate. But I also like to chase different opportunities. For me, it's always a matter of challenge. I had been in that virtual space for 10 years plus. I needed something different. I needed a new challenge to go after. So that started my path. I go back and forth between working independently and working for other people, depending on what challenge I'm chasing, because sometimes it's easier to learn within the boundaries of another organization, take it back out and apply it to personal. So I've always kind of gone back and forth between where I'm at and what I want to learn. Because for me, it's always getting a holistic picture of the whole, what encompasses a business and how to run it better. So depending on what skill I need and where I want to skill up, I'll go and find a company that has a challenge for me. Then I take it back over personal and say, okay, how can I try something else here and see what I like?
Yeah. And it's so nice, like I said in the beginning, to be able to have that opportunity now, because I think we all were a little bit, and I'll speak for myself, a little bit scared to do that when we were working for an organization, because that brings up a good point that Connie, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this too, of when you're going out on your own, how do you get comfortable with that? Because I think my biggest thing was, and I'll be honest, it was money. I was like, I'm going from having a salary to now kind of making my own. How many projects do I need to equal that? And can I actually take these on? Because we had a great conversation with Connie about a week ago about, saying yes to everything, and how that obviously can't happen if you're only one person. So Connie, how did you become comfortable with the fact that you were going from, having a nice, let's say, every 2-week paycheck to now kind of making your own paycheck, and where that was coming from?
Yeah, so I think a strategy has to do a lot with it. So when I left HBC, I knew if I was to leave on I quit, 2-week notice, I'm done, I would have. But the way that I was able to leave and knowing what I was eligible for, I was able to negotiate basically enough for me to survive and build up my confidence to build the right networks and get the right projects. So I think from a strategy perspective, you should have some type of a savings, especially if you know that, somewhere down the near future, you're about to leave a stable income. And I think for me, the second really important conversation to have is with your partner. For me, it was with my husband. I'm like, honey, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to really just dive and follow my passion. And when we had that conversation, it was, okay, honey, I love you. I support you. I believe in you. And having that kind of backup of someone that can trust you and know that they're there for you, and that he's going to be the one that has to help with the heavy weight of the financial expenses for now. That helped give me a little bit more confidence that, okay, I think we can survive. And we looked at our numbers, our finances, our expenses to say, how long can Connie survive until I pick up my first project, and until I build my first momentum, and how much do I have left over from my savings or from my package that I'm getting? So knowing your timeline of your expenses and what you can bring in potentially that is critical to your confidence, to how far and how long you'll run, and how hard you have to hustle as well, potentially. And that's where that networking was key, right? I'm like, nobody knows me. No one knows I'm available. How do I get out there? And I think strategically joining marketing with NPI was me learning the voice of how do I share that I'm available. So those were all tactical things that I did to aid. It was great in terms of experience, but it was also things that I needed as part of my toolbox to be successful.
So Ron and Connie, don't kill me. And Ron, go ahead. I'm gonna let you make your point before I go to this next conversation piece, because we've already talked about it and you guys told me it could be its own topic, but it goes so well with what we're talking about. So Ron, you make your point first.
No, I think I was just going to say to Connie, that's a great point. And I think it's part of the networking is a piece that a lot of people don't look at the right way before they strike it out on their own. Because I think that's what kicked me as I started verging into there. It was that thought of, okay, I've got all this, I've got a great plan for a business, how I want to do it. Where do I find the connections, the clients? Where is that coming from? And that's it. Really, you have to fall back to an established network. And if you don't take the time to do that work to build a network, you're going to find that you're having a hard time finding business because you don't have those connections that can direct you to the people that need your services. So I think that's just a great point that Connie's made about really getting in there and taking that time to do the networking up front.
And Ron, that's a great point that leads into what we were talking about. And I said they're going to kill me because they said this could be its own topic, but I want to bring it in. Is when I was first going out, I also looked at my network and who I knew, but I felt more comfortable with talking to the people that I had talked to most recently. Because how awkward is it? And Connie, you might have a different experience with this, of going out to somebody that you haven't talked to in months and kind of putting out there that you're available for these services without blatantly asking if they know about any jobs. So how did you really work that into your conversation, or did you feel that was awkward? That might have just been me, because sometimes I make things a little more complicated than they need to be. So what was your experience with really leaning on that network and kind of using the right language in order to make it obvious that you were out there and looking for projects?
Yeah, so I think this is a really great question. And often, depending on how you approach it and who you approach it with and what your relationship with that person, it could be perceived differently or received differently. So for me, I think just going back to my initial start of K7 and saying I'm available, I told all my friends, I'm going on my own. If you guys need or know anyone who needs it, please help me spread the word. That was a simple one. But I think I got to the time where I'm saying my strategy of how much can I go or how far can I go with the money that I have. I was starting to get desperate because it was towards the end of my time. And I basically raised my hand to say, hey, NPI friends, by the way, I am available and I'm now desperate. Please, if you hear of anything, please put my name in the draw for something. So I think for me, that first initial honest raise of hand to my friends that has worked with me and seen my work. Tammy Adams, I'm going to throw her name out there because she was an amazing friend. And she was the director of communications and marketing at that time. She's like, oh my God, Connie, you're so awesome. We love what you're doing. If you need help, yeah, definitely. We'll try to help. And that same week was the board meeting and she shared it with the board. And the next day I got a phone call from a board member and said, Connie, we heard you're looking. I have a project. Are you interested? I'm like, absolutely. Let's talk. And within the next day, I was able to talk with her, shared with her my rate I would like to ask for. And I got my first project there. So I think organically, just being honest to say that you're available with friends that you trust, that's the best route. And I would say the second recommendation is for people that you don't know and that you want to kind of continue to expand your network and connect with. Always before you say, hey, I'm ready, I need you to help me. I'm like, that sounds very aggressive to say, I need you to help me. It's like, I don't know you, Connie. How can I help you? I have no experience working with you. How can I recommend you? I can't do that. So my recommendation for anyone that you think are industry influencers and connectors that you think can help you, just say, hey, Leslie, hey, Ron, I love what you guys are doing and how cool you guys are. I would love to have a coffee chat with you. And through that coffee chat, A, you get to know that person. B, you're able to kind of articulate, hopefully, a conversation about your expertise without it being obvious that you're looking for something. And then at the very end to say, thank you so much for this conversation. And by the way, I am open for work. If there's any opportunities that you can think of, please feel free to consider me. I think saying it in that way to say, please feel free versus please help me, give me something or expect something, the tone's a bit different. And the other example that I shared with you last week as well is like, I created an event and it was about helping the industry connect with people. And I had someone signed up and the first thing he said was, Connie, thanks for doing this, but where's the connections that you promised me? I'm like, whoa, I didn't promise you any connections. I created a platform and an event to help build connections. So it's not just expecting someone that is trying to open doors for you to directly make recommendations. You still need to have those coffee chats. You still need to warm up and show your credibility, build that relationship, because when you have a trusted relationship, that's when I will have your back more or know that person has my back to make that recommendation, because our words, our experiences of who we recommend reflects back on, do I trust you? Right? I don't just recommend anybody because that means I can recommend the world and the world is horrible. Then the person that's took that recommendation is like, Connie, your recommendation sucks. I'm never going to go back to you again. Then that hurts me at the end too, right?
Yeah, because it has that value of like, that's your name that gets associated to it. So you really want to be cautious of that trusted circle of who you have in there and who you allow. But it's also, I think, to another point that you were making there, Connie, it's when you have these conversations, it's find out what you can do for them by just having a conversation, find out where they're at, what's happening in their world versus I need you to do something for me. What can I do for you? Having that, switching that conversation or that train of thought to when you engage those individuals, find out what's bothering them, because then you can get a better picture of what you can offer them. Then you can go back with an offer and say, hey, I hear you're having this problem here. Did you know I'm an expert at this and I can, help guide you in that direction, or, even just give you some advice to make it through. And you start building that trusted relationship with people to where you can expand from there. And sometimes you do it for free, because some people, some of the smaller things, you give them that little bit for free, and then they're going to remember that you helped them there. And then they're willing to make a recommendation for you later on. So it's that little bit of give and take balance that you have there, especially when you're first starting out, to build those relationships.
Yeah, I love everything you just said there, Ron. And I think it's that exchange and that conversation is like, hey, let's get to know each other.
Right.
By the way, what are your pain points that you're experiencing right now? Oh, by the way, I have those pain points. How do we help each other? I think that's the most powerful question that you can ask each other is, I'm not just asking you for help. I'm also asking how I can help you. So in that exchange, I think it's more meaningful to say, oh, I can ask Ron and Leslie to help me, but how can I help them as well? So it's more meaningful.
Great.
Yeah, and definitely also look at your connections posts and what they're sharing and commenting on, because I actually last week commented on one that a colleague of mine or former colleague had commented on of somebody looking for help since they need help with hybrid and everything. And if you know anyone, so both her and I had no shame. And I was like, I know me. And I have a meeting with her tomorrow to talk about what she's looking for. So definitely look at those posts too of what other people are invested in and commenting on, because it could lead to something. And then you can bring up that connection of, how did you see me? Well, I was connected with this person. This is what I did with them. Just like I said earlier, I got a connection through Connie of somebody who was looking for some help. And it was pretty much the day after I posted that I was out kind of trying to do something on my own. So it's definitely worth it just to pay attention to what's happening in that networking environment, because I didn't know this person. I wasn't connected to them, but I saw her post through another connection, and that's how I found it. So definitely just keeping an eye on that environment, seeing what's happening, because it's, you're not ever going to see every post that's up of everybody looking for assistance or jobs or help. So it goes a long way to be really invested in what other people are interested in as well.
For sure. And I love what you said there too. I think LinkedIn is one of the most powerful networks in terms of helping others connect, but also expanding that network to not just be the first connection, but the second connections as well, right? So I think for me, Leslie, when I saw you post that you're open to opportunities, and like I think you're so wonderful in terms of your knowledge and your experience in the industry. I'm like, Leslie's looking for something. I have to help her. Like, how do I share? So that
No
is
one can see me, but I'm blushing.
but I have to say that is humongous courage, because often sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm looking. I don't want people to know that I'm looking. I want people to think that I'm always busy, that I'm this and that. I'm like, but honestly, it's okay to say that I'm a freelancer. I have time and I have hours. Share that you're available. And then through that, your connections has the permission now to help you share within their connections. And that's the power of, I think, LinkedIn in terms of your ability to follow like the people that you trust and love and want to help. But once you see that permission to share, boom, it amplifies the ability for you to actually maximize your reach more in terms of opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that goes into a good conversation too around, like you said, not being afraid to say you're a freelancer and the hours and everything that you're willing to work, because I am super transparent with, that I have a daughter who goes to daycare 3 days a week. The other 2, she's with me. I'm not taking calls. You wouldn't want to be on the phone with me because I wouldn't be paying attention to you fully. So I think being honest, and there's, and even if it's like I run errands in the afternoon, this is what I do, or whatever it is that you're doing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's part of your personality. It's part of the reason that you become a freelancer, is because you decided, these are my values. These are the things I was missing out on if I was maybe working with an organization where I was working all the time, and I'm not willing to give that up anymore. And honestly, most of the projects I've got, they're fine with that, because as long as you're getting the work done, nobody cares what hours you're actually doing. As long as you're being responsive and getting it done, it's kind of opened the door to a lot of people to be a little bit more comfortable with becoming a freelancer and putting it out there. Now, do people always understand when you say, I'm a contractor? No. I have multiple family members who are like, what the hell does that mean? Oh, like, what are you doing all day then? So I think now, especially in our industry, it's become a lot more understandable of why people are going out on their own.
Yep, I totally agree. And I think understanding what's important to you, it's kind of like that compensation chart, right? To say, hey, I need to be paid this rate. And in order for you to, or for me to want to work with you on this project, is you need to understand my expectations and how we communicate. So it goes down to understanding your values, understanding what's important to you, and level setting that expectations with your potential. I call them partners. The people that we work with, they have to trust us as if we were their business partners that's helping them deliver on what they need. And if you have that trust, it honestly is like what you said, Leslie. It doesn't matter what hours you're working, because we all have our creative juices happening in different times of the day, or we're more productive, or we're more like our eyes are more clear to edit things on other times. So we are all functioning differently. So why do we have to be stuck to a 9 to 5? We shouldn't be. We should work whenever we need to, as long as we deliver to the times that we committed to. Especially, I think, establishing when you communicate and how you communicate, that's part of the level setting as well with our clients and our partners.
And I want to ask you, because Ron and I actually had a conversation, an episode about being a yes person. Because Ron and I used to be yes people all the time. We're not now, which is probably a good thing. But how do you, once you kind of build your brand up, or you get comfortable with the level that your brand is at and the number of projects you have, how do you use the language of, you don't want to say no, but you need to say not right now? Because time management wise, you want to be dedicated to a project, and if you take on another one, you're not going to be, because you just have too much going on. So how do you really incorporate that, or how do you use that language to keep that door open with that organization or person asking you to do the project, but you can't take on that one at that current moment?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is really, don't say no right away. My recommendation is have a conversations, invite them to say, hey, this project sounds really cool. Can you tell me more? And then I think once you understand the full scope of work, of what's required and your commitment, then you can say, let me evaluate this to see how I can make it work. And if I can't, I'll go back to you. At least that way, you're not saying no right away. And your clients and your partners will appreciate you evaluating the opportunity. And when you do say not right now, you're giving them the full trust that I want to deliver the best for you, but I'm not the one to deliver it for you at this time because I have other commitments. And I don't want to say yes to you and then reduce the quality of my other commitments. They will actually respect you a lot more that you said not right now, but I love our conversations. I love the opportunity to work with you, but I'm tied down into this current commitment. And if you have flexibility in this project, let's do it next month or a month later or in 2023 when it's better lead times that we can really focus and deliver. I think having that type of conversation is to evaluate first before a direct no. You'll have a lot more respect, and then truly evaluating the SOW. Can you actually do this? Because we have to look at our capabilities as well. Sometimes it's like, oh, there's 10 things on your list. I can do 7 of them. Is that what you want? Or do you have flexibility for me to deliver 7 and bring in another partner with me, which is what I often do these days with my circle of trust, to say, I want to bundle a creative solution, but it's not just me delivering it. Now I have strategic partners that can really do a wow. Are you open to that? So I think giving them and evaluating A, the opportunity, B, who you potentially can bring forward. And if your client and partner is willing to do that, then you have a more powerful way of positioning your brand, your and your power to help them.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I know we're all always afraid to say no. I think there's still, even though we've all kind of got this freedom, we still have that fear of saying no, that they're not going to come back to us. They're not going to want to work with us, especially if you, let's say, I know I've done it in the past, applied for a job at a company and they came back and I was like, sorry, I'm pregnant. I'm not going to work for an organization. And then I wanted to keep that door open and I was afraid they'd be like, no, she told us no the first time. Why would we ever go back to her? So I like that outlook that you're keeping that relationship going. And also you're kind of opening it up to your connections too by bringing somebody else in if you can't handle that workload. And that's such a great thing because Ron and I have even talked about that before, of just kind of sharing the wealth, and spreading it through your network, because people are going to remember that. And they're going to also say your name to other people with bigger projects, knowing that you work well with others, you bring in others when you can't, and you're aware of that. So I love that. So I do want to talk more about K7 and the Circle of Trust before we wrap up, because if anybody isn't following K7 or Circle of Trust, I encourage you to, because it's incredibly inspiring. Connie built up this brand already. So talk to us a little bit about K7 and the Circle of Trust.
Yeah, so K7 is really my business that I'm refocusing on right now. And I love taking special projects. And for me, special projects could be anything to do with the events industry or with marketing, or it's a special project. That's why we call it special projects. It could be anything. But through that, I think if anything, it is the circle of trust, the people that I've been able to establish a relationship with since I've came out, to say, hey, I trust you. I trust your credibility in delivering the results that we're asking for, because you clearly understand what we need. And for me, sometimes, because I am a one-person show, but I just recently added Case 8 to my business, I'm so excited because I'll talk. Actually, I'm going to jump right into the circle of trust for a little bit. The circle of trust are people that are in my network that I've had relationships with, that I've worked with, and that I really trust. And I think the word trust is the key. If I can rely on them to support me and help me and get it done, once we make the commitment to get it done, they're there. And I highlight them because when I highlight someone in a very positive way, I'm amplifying the ability for them to actually tap into my reach, my network, as much as they will allow me to tap into theirs as well. And I think more importantly, with my circle of trust, they are truly people I've worked with and people that I sincerely think are great humans, and that you can work with. So yeah, circle of trust is all about amplifying and sharing the love of who we want to work with and who we can and have worked with.
Yeah, and I love that, because it's always interesting when you do, let's say, only one project with someone and you would recommend them, but then you haven't worked with them in years. So you're not exactly sure that's happened to me before. I did recommend someone. I hadn't worked with them in an extremely long time, but I remember them being this reliable, really creative person. And on that particular project, it turned out that they weren't. And I felt incredibly bad for both people because I wanted it to be a huge success. And it had just been so long that I didn't really think that would have been a factor, but it was. So I love that idea of just keeping that forefront of building that relationship, fostering it, and having that circle of trust of people that are just on the tip of your tongue the minute somebody would ask you about a project. So I love that. Ron, anything to add before we thank Connie so much for her time and influence over everybody?
I just think, Connie, it's great. I like what you're doing. I obviously follow on social media, LinkedIn, and, just seeing all of the posts you put out each day. They're inspiring. It's just great to be able to see those because it gets my brain thinking and running each day. So thank you for that. And thank you for being on the show and joining us. Leslie, anything before we go into wrap up?
No, I think you have an exciting announcement about our charity, though.
Yes. So we are continuing to do the charity to help the Children's Fund. And for every download of the episode, I am donating $1 to the Children's Fund. We are up to $239 as of the last episode. So I checked right before we started the recording of this one. So again, if you're able to, all you have to do is listen, even for a few minutes, across any of the channels. And I'm counting that. So at the end of December, early January, I will make the donation based off the total number of downloads. So again, I appreciate everybody that's been listening to the show and helping that number get up higher and higher. We will be back again next week. Connie, thank you again so much. It was amazing having you on today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure having this awesome conversation.
All right. Thank you. And Leslie, thank you as always.
Of course. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.